Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Adriana Vidar. I'm the curator of the project Living Content Under Pressure, together with Katja Novitskova. And for those who don't know, Living Content Under Pressure is an interdisciplinary curatorial project that conceives itself as a collection of poetic explorations looking into a potential reconciliation with what it means to be human in the age of climate crisis. Living Content Under Pressure is composed of an exhibition hosted by Migros Gallery in Bucharest, an online platform created by Wednesday Studio, and public programming that cross-pollinates the project's online and offline environments throughout September and October. Our talk with Katja Novitskova today will take approximately 40 minutes, and I'll let Tatiana introduce Katja.
Katja Novitskova tackles in her work the complexity and the eventual failures of depicting the world through technologically driven narratives. By uniting art and science to the level of nature, Katja Novitskova brings awareness to the mediation and representation tools used to depict these realms. Her work has been exhibited internationally in solo and group exhibitions, including Migros Museum, Powerlong Museum, Shanghai, Hamburger Bahnhof, Berlin, Baltic Triennial, Vilnius, also with the Estonian Pavilion of the Venice Biennale and the Public Art Fund New York, amongst many others. Katja lives and works between Berlin and Amsterdam, and today she's with us from Amsterdam. So Katja, the screen is yours.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Tatiana and Adriana, for inviting me to the show and the talk. And hello, everybody who is watching. And I'm going to share my screen and do my talk. All right. Boom, boom, and boom. All right, so I will talk about the series of works that are in the show at Migros Gallery, and also the series that kind of I've been developing in the last, I would say, 3 years. And it started with this collection of small tablets that were made with synthetic clays and transfer print. And these were called annual reports. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to make kind of like a weird report over a year, or just report some way of capturing like a moment, but using a very very somehow timeless format. And I ended up coming up with these synthetic clay tablets. And each tablet had its own image that I kind of altered. Each image was found on the internet, but I altered it. And the images ranged from graphs to like hurricane graphs to corporate structure of alphabet to supposedly CIA announcing that they found an UFO, and a picture of my old neighborhood in Tallinn, amongst other things. And the point was to kind of equalize the idea of data and drawing, basically this idea that each depiction of information is some form of like a pictorial message. And also, I didn't really know exactly why I was doing it. I just felt like I needed to do this collection of images as a work. And amongst this collection of annual reports, there was 3 of these images of, these were basically just photographs taken by an automatic camera in the forest in Africa. And the automatic camera was set up there to take pictures of passing elephants or other animals. And these particular 3 images didn't have any animals in them, but the camera was still triggered. And what you could see, usually in this sort of automatic camera images, is the date, exact date when the image was taken, and even the temperature of the air. And so for me, this was literally like kind of like a weather report like a micro-focused weather report from a very exact moment in time from 2017, I think they're all. But also it sort of didn't say anything new, it just captured, it's just like a data point, a visual data point, but also kind of a poetic, subtle image. And another one in the collection was this image of a, from an article about an algorithm differentiating background and foreground, and this cheetah was used. And the red line is the algorithm kind of attempting to differentiate an animal in the foreground from the background. And I kind of like this medium, so I went to create a series of experimental larger works. These were, the previous ones were like kind of A4, a little bit less than, smaller than A4s. And these were already the size that you find in the gallery, about like 1.20 by 1.60. And this was an image of a group of, this was actually like early 2019, a group of bats. And I kind of made this collage using some algorithmic image processing and found text. And the phrase is in Russian, it says, our cosmos was bruised, a bruise like hurt. And I kind of like this technique more and more because it sort of created a natural corruption in the image, in the digital image. So I continued to make more of these, and these were, this one, I think this one is the first one that was called Earthware. And this was an image of a scan, of a body scan of a 13-year-old girl who was mummified in Peru in I don't remember, 1500s. And there was a scientific paper again about like kind of researching based on her, based on this body scan, what happened to her in the last, hours, days of her life, what was her in her stomach, and what was, what she heard, and all these kind of things. And I kind of continued to be inspired from this idea of a stone or clay tablet, of a fresco, because there's this sort of corruption in the image that made it, although the images were very contemporary, this is a scientific image of a scan, because of the corruption of the clay and because of this lower resolution nature of these often technological machines, it sort of blended with the clay, and it created a somehow quality that I haven't seen before. And so I continued to experiment in this realm. This was the second one. This, I think, was, I don't know if it's the same. I don't think it's this, it's another mummy. And this was, and the graph that is laying on is the, I think, survival rate from some paper about life insurance. And this was the second Earthware that I made. And then I continued to kind of go further with them, and I started to mix the graphical elements with these photographical elements and kind of create more complex works. And in this case, this is sort of, there's a story to this work, but I'm not going to tell it. It's just kind of, this was a series of works that I made, again, combining kind of a nature element with a data element. These data graphs are like gene legends over a certain area. This idea of relentless expansion of human spaces, meaning kind of the kind of environmental colonialism, let's say, of people expanding into more and more so-called wild territories. And this was also some sort of work about using genetic material of animals as a resource. And another series of, another kind of, I don't know how you call it, not a triptych, but if it's four, fortych, it was one piece, and in this case, it again just went back to basics of using screenshots of the photographs taken by an automatic camera of like one deer in a specific date in a specific forest. And this was already not in Africa, this was in the Netherlands. And I just played a bit with the color, I added the red. And I kind of felt like, okay, I like the simplicity more and more, and I started to really focus on finding these automatic camera pictures of from taken in the wilderness. And basically I discovered this whole world of citizen science projects where they like big data sets of images are put out online for people to voluntarily classify them. And basically what you usually classify is the species of an animal and the, you know, how many of the animals are in the image, if it's possible, their sex, and all these kind of things. And I started to do these classifications as a kind of volunteer. And I think I've done around, I don't know, 6,000 before I didn't have time to do it anymore. And I'm gonna go now through these images, through how they appear usually in the wild when I'm taking these screenshots. And you see this is like a specific moment in 2018, specific time, it was 13 degrees, and this deer encountered an automatic camera. And because of how the camera works, you know, it looks like there was a flash. Also, I think the flash is invisible, and the eyes glow because of how the eye is structured. The back of the eye just reflects any light that goes towards it in a biological sense. And a lot of these images it's a bit like when John Ruffman did this project with 9 eyes with the Google Street View. He just browsed through them looking for, you know, interesting moments. But in my case, instead of Google Street View, it's just like wilderness, and the camera, the gaze of the camera and thus of a human is sort of invisible, and it kind of lets this weird intimacy. It creates this weird intimacy with the environment, but also it's still like a form of intrusion into maybe a moment that we're not supposed to see actually. And so there was a lot of these beautiful images. I'm just showing you some that I really like. And there was a lot of accidental beauty. And there's this insect that is flying around in front of the camera, but there's also this black hyena and walking on the road. Elephants. And also because of the kind of the limitation of technology, this pixelated nature of the image and the glowing of the eyes creates this almost like as if these animals are some sort of robots. And this effect is weird. And in some images you see actually the cameras. This is a family of baboons that is walking on the road, and then you see the setup of the camera and how it is. And some animals obviously notice these cameras. This is another sad baboon, but I use this image later in the work. This is like a moon, I guess, but I don't know why it's red in the background. This is a weird glitch. There's a lot of this kind of accidental, there was wildfires and like animals standing in front of these wildfires. In the same spot in the morning and in the day. There's obviously like several cameras that are in the same spot. just sunrises or suns. I guess it's PM, it's the sunset. Glowing hippo. And then there's also these other types of glitches. This one camera in the one specific spot, it had this weird rectangular glitch, and it just altered everything in the frame. And some of these compositions were very strong, so I just kept thinking, you know, what could I do with them? I didn't want to just make earthenware clays with them without any other context. So I just kept collecting. This is like a intimate moment of two deers bonding. This is a little rhino. This is a wallaby, I think, in Australia. Bears somewhere in North US. Chimpanzee. This is actually not my image. This is an image I found online from an article about several chimpanzees in Congo stealing corn from a plantation. And there was a bunch of images around these chimpanzees, but they were like just captured on these night cameras. It was actually video stealing stuff from the gardens. There's a zebra. This is, I don't know what's the flash, where it comes from. This is a leopard, another leopard. This is an image I didn't find. This was also from online. And so when I kind of went back to thinking about these things, I basically realized that my previous work of like animal cutouts is very much similar to this algorithmic process of identifying a composition in the foreground of an animal and taking it out of its context. And so in the beginning also, I made a bunch of cutouts installations with these automatic camera images before I made the earthwares. But what I also was, and then I kind of stopped because I don't know, it felt like I did this gesture and it was enough. And then I went further into the classifying images. And one data set was really interesting because it was basically taken by an automatic camera, but a flying one. It was a drone that took images. It was a flying drone that took images in the heat vision spectrum. So these images were not our visual daylight spectrum, but heat. So it captured these two people, and this is how the data set looked like. Everything was sort of purplish, and the animals were bright yellow, and I think the roads were these orange lines. And it got me also thinking of, and this is how a classification, you kind of classify how many animals, you basically kind of hunt for animals in the image. And it got me also thinking into this sort of various spectrums of vision that we could see these animals with, and also this incredible low resolution quality of them that I found intriguing. And also at some point I made these cutouts with a kind of a heat image. But to continue into the earthware narrative, I found also these images of a driverless car, self-driving car analyzing a road. And so these are like the images of a deer crossing the road, but these were taken and identified by a car, a self-driving car. And of course, they kind of remind me a lot, the resolution of them and the topic reminds me a lot just of this ancient cave art that is always a bit low resolution. And also it has a specific motives of cattle and hunting. The one on the right, this image is dated to Neanderthals. I don't know if it's confirmed. And so I found this similarity of kind of a depiction from this drone taking an image of an animal in the heat spectrum to these cave paintings. And yeah, more and more also this texture, this sort of corrupted texture of the stone, where certain lines are the drawing and certain lines are just the wall, like the cave wall itself. And so I made a bunch. I just took this self-driving car images, and I made earthwares with them. And what I also usually do is all the kind of textured surfaces in the work, I've been nail polish them silver, so it's not even clear if it's a stone or if it's metal. And yeah, so this was a series that I basically recreated from these car images. And this is, for example, one image from the data set that I classified, and this was just a deer in this blurry distance. And the colors were so corrupted that it already looked like a weird psychedelic image, not clear also if it's, it's almost like borderline incomprehensible to the human eye, but this is kind of how the camera was able to capture it. And I kind of also made, I kept going, basically becoming more and more interested in this kind of weird corruption, but also the corruption of the image sort of presents a human or machine factor that was not there, 40,000 years ago, but there's like an obvious similarity. And this was, I made something like with, on the left is the image of one of these chimpanzees who stole our corn. And on the right is this, it's not clear, but it's the baboon the image of a baboon that I classified. And the quote on the left is the quote from The Collapse of Roman Empire. And the quote on the right is the quote I think I screenshotted from an interview with Deleuze. We could almost say that a living creature is a memory which acts. And so I was trying to introduce kind of more layers to these nature images, trying to connect all these kind of topics together. And it came idea to collaborate with Power Studio to basically generate something like a stick drawing image, or like a primitive kind of drawing of a figure that is both human and non-human, and also taking into account kind of our knowledge that we have today. So we're not just mimicking something from cave art, but we're including like images of brain cells and like algorithmic tracing over Dubai Island in Dubai, and kind of different graphs from different cultures of like a human as a human figure, as a kind of partially human, or as like a line. And we use that, and also we found this data set of like Italian rock art, and that was used in some research for algorithmic analysis of them. And we took it all, and Power Studio, they helped me to generate basically a few hundred of like completely novel drawings of human / non-human figures. And I really like them. Yeah, so on the right, you see there was a bit of this Dubai Island head. And so you could kind of, I don't exactly know how they did it all, but it's, in the end, it came out kind of really interesting. So I started to kind of use them as these inserts into the animal, into the automatic camera photographs. And for me, they were kind of the stand-ins for the view, for us, is this sort of contemporary human figure that is not really present. There's just this camera, but there's still kind of the presence of humanity, let's say. And instead of kind of and it's a fuzzy one, it's not a photographer with a big camera who goes and takes this cinematic, 4K quality images of penguins. It's just this weird, blurry, low pixel, noisy image. And so at the same time, you know, the animals maybe are not aware that anything is happening, but it's us still kind of expanding into their territory and hunting them. So it's this visual hunting or this environmental surveillance or whatever you call it. And I didn't want to have words or more of these words on the works. I just wanted it all to be condensed in an image. So we started to kind of make earthwares with these figures. And then it came all together for me. That it became like, oh, this is a series of works that I think I will continue doing, and it makes sense as a way to also respond to this kind of contemporary overabundance of I don't know what to call it, ecological surveillance. And these hunters made, obviously it has a lot of this kind of rhyming with the cave art, ancient cave art, but also this image would not be possible without very contemporary technologies of, you know, these automatic cameras, like movement sensitive automatic cameras, algorithmic processing of drawings and images, and synthetic clay that is basically actually not clay, but it's petroleum based. And this is kind of how I installed it. And the first time I showed it in Hamburger Bahnhof, with also using the drawings, the generate drawings for graffiti. And this was recently in October Salon in Belgrade, and now there's several works traveled to Bucharest. And we also did I don't have the high resolution pictures of the documentation yet, so I didn't include it here. And this is basically kind of, I'm showing more sketches that some of them were, like this one ended up being different. These are the ones I sketched but didn't make yet. So it's like a kind of an ongoing series that keeps floating. And what I like is this kind of dynamism of the, like in some pictures, it literally looks like the animals are looking back at the ghosts. And this is a sketch I did where it's when the samples are biased towards more probable sequences, they get easier to read but less diverse until they all look the same, exactly the same. It's a little poem from a paper about using machine learning. And actually, oh, I forgot to say that the reason you classify these images in these Dutch large data sets online is to train the AI basically to do the same at some point. So there's a lot of like, you feel that you're doing labor for the, for the algorithm, and also obviously it's kind of a lost cause because all these images are so variable of different animals that it's I don't even know if it will be ever possible to do so fully, to classify them in each position, in each sort of perspective. But I kind of also by teaching this algorithm, I'm also kind of myself looking at these images from this mechanic perspective. I just have to count the amount of bodies and understand their species. And this idea of looking for poetry in it is an accident, is like a byproduct. Nobody thought about it, nobody needed it. I just decided there was too much beauty that I had to do something with it. Or like get it out of the data set, at least to put it into the world a bit. Because I haven't seen, there's always like some form of that in the popular culture, but it's not really enough to kind of showcase the scale of this kind of engagement with nature, and also this state of photography. Like who makes this photograph? What is this image? Why it exists, kind of thing. And what does it say about the world? This fact that like 10:45 p.m. on 10th of November 2018, this deer, this antelope jumped in front of like a fire. I don't know. So there's this environmental question to it that I also find interesting. Yeah, so I'm actually done because I was just showing a lot of pictures, but I can keep showing them, and or I can stop sharing. What do you think?
I think it would be great to see more. I
mean, I don't have, I mean, I
nice.
can put it on the, I show, let's see. Do you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
And do you see folder opening or no? Or you only see
No,
keynote?
just the keynote.
Okay, and then I'm gonna stop and then I'll try to share something else. Finder, share. Okay. Yes.
Yes, we can
So
see it.
I'm gonna share.
A lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna show my Zooniverse folder. I mean, the website that I use for classifications is called Zooniverse, so you can just browse through them.
Wow, really nice.
I mean, these are just screenshots that I took because I found something kind of beautiful in the. I'm gonna stretch everything so you don't see my folders.
I can maybe, because I have a question that is actually very much related to this and to earthwares, of course, and maybe as we browse through them, I can ask because what really attracted me to your work, and especially through this series, Earthwares, was that you depict basically how humans can access technology through different ways, and your work obviously does that through earthwares, but also through other works that you access this like micro versus macro, and or not versus but and I was just curious if you can expand a bit about these kind of like maybe ethical or theoretical implications that this accessing through technology can have for humans, especially in relation to climate change. Like, what do you think are some of the implications?
Yeah, I mean, for me, for example, there's this different dimensions. So there's like images of planets, other planets, and images of proteins or cells or something, and this is a different scale. And I think these types of images, for example, of like a wildlife snapshots, they're kind of also they also micro access to something that was kind of inaccessible before, but is now widely accessible. So it's just like this expansion, as I say, this expansion of human gaze, or like of human ability to capture something into either inside the body or outside in space, or in this case, into the wilderness. So like these specific projects are obviously done for research to identify the amount of species that are present in the area, and kind of the health of the ecosystem, let's say. And they are used in policies. This is like a beluga. They're used in policies towards fighting climate change, let's say. But there's also a sinister kind of thing where somebody like Google comes to a national park and says, "Oh, we will be able to help you do your, biodiversity research with our AI algorithm." And they actually don't know if it will be in any shape or form effective to do that. They just think it's a way to have a use case for their computer vision algorithms. Basically, they're like, "Oh, we can sell this or offer this service to the environmental ecological sector." And actually, it's sort of dubious. It's like, I think, ethically dubious if it's useful at all, but it's happening. And so these data sets are being created. And another thing that I think it does, for example, the good thing that it does is just it exposes us to like this intimacy of wildlife that we haven't seen before, and maybe it does create some sort of awareness in people that around the places where they live, there's all this activity going on and all these different species that are living, and it's all like, it's not somewhere else, it's right here. Some of these data sets are like in the cities, in like, I don't know, in Chicago or in some like outskirts of some large cities. This is a cat. And so I think this is like a good thing, for example, of this. My whole kind of work, as I say, regarding the earthwares or regarding the other series is to somehow capture this moment of a frontier of like a human, you know, a human and now machine eyes that are kind of mapping the territory to expand into. Because, for example, if these maybe wild forests will be left alone, technically they'll still be, they're already kind of intruded via the research that is being done there, or at some point maybe people will go take the genetic samples of these animals, or they will you know, use their image like I'm using in some sort of nefarious yeah, this is how it looks like, kind of South Sudan diversity camp. And this is like a specific project about like South Sudan forest. And so, yeah, there's a kind of a lot of things that are layered onto these very simple, in the end, visually simple works. I don't know if I answered fully your question.
Yeah, no, I'm literally just kind of I'm just looking at the images because I'm curious. I didn't know
this is
such a
like
database existed.
how kind of you classify them. So you get like a menu, you can pick like an animal.
It's funny. That's really interesting.
I think this is a like a fog.
Very intimate moment.
Yeah, no, exactly. There were some other more intimate ones that I didn't want to show of like sexual intercourse.
That's really great. Well, I think yeah, Tatiana, do you want to ask one more question, or should we end it here? What do you think?
Well, we had another thing. Maybe if we can go, yeah, we still have some, maybe 5 more minutes. I think the sun is invading my room, so I hope you still see me. But yeah, I was thinking we know time works differently at different speed and scales, and with the technology developing so fast, the 3 works presented in the exhibition look like some ancient petroglyphs, as if technology is creating and preserving its own anthropology. So I was curious to hear you talk about time in the works that we've seen.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, that that for me somehow it's very interesting, this precision of time in this series, where it's very clearly capturing a certain moment that happened on Earth, you know. And there's a kind of a weird environmental, again, precision to it, or like ecological precision to it, of this was the day. And I haven't tried it, but I could have like kind of parallel to this, look into what else happened in this moment in, you know, around the world. Maybe there's some sort of other parallels I would find looking exactly at these time frames from this moment. And I think it's this time capturing maybe makes it a bit more real again, you know, that it's not just like a landscape or like painting or some photograph in, you know, this beautiful National Geographic photograph that kind of becomes very abstract. This is like a very real set of moments. And I don't know, I think it's sort of, yeah, it becomes this kind of more pinned down reality, which makes it, although the images are more blurry, it makes it more real somehow, or significant, to me at least. Although, so like even this, you know, not all of them look like masterpiece photographs, but just the reality of them, makes it special to me, I think. And not to me like a person, but just I think in general, there's something to be found there. I don't know exactly what fully. I'm just trying to dig that out.
Yeah, they're definitely very mysterious and very, very interesting. Well, I think we're a little bit 2 minutes over time, but I think I want to thank you so much, Katja, for your time and for you know, helping us understand your work in depth and really giving us such a great insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katja, and thank you for being with us here and in the exhibition as well.
Thank you.
So just to end and to announce the next events, so we'll be continuing our public programming tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Migros Gallery in Bucharest with a lecture performance by Anca Bucur called A Land, a Body, a Territory, which will consider the effects that colonialism has had in the past centuries through the subjugation of bodies and the natural world. And so with this, I want to end and thank Katja again, of course, for being here, Mobius Gallery, and to all our partners that made this happen, ICR New York, Goethe Institute, and AFCN Romania. Thank you so much.